Hello and welcome back to Life Unpotted. This is Sophie here. We are drinking our toasted green tea sitting by the window in Austin, Texas. It is pretty cloudy today, but that's okay because the weather doesn't impact my mood as much as it used to. I'm able to relax into whatever is happening outside, recognizing that it's not about the external world, it's about my internal world. And I'm really excited for today's conversation because it's one that is really, really, really important, honestly. It's this reflection that Daisy and I have been having about the fact that we are pursuing our dreams and kind of having one of those holy shit, it's happening moments. I was writing out an email template the other day because we're expanding Life Unpotted to bring on guests from different niches. More to come on that, but I sat down to write the template and it just flowed. Like all of a sudden, I had this really, really broad, big picture idea for Life Unpotted about, wow, it's so much bigger than I ever thought it was. You know, it's about the collective. It's about waking up the world. And that was a moment where I never thought that I would feel so connected to what I was saying. I never thought I would feel so connected to the words I was writing on the paper, the email I was typing. And it had me reflecting on how so much of my life I was really disconnected from everything I was doing. I was at a job and I was kind of just showing up, doing the motions, doing what I had to do because I had to do it, and never really feeling like that full body connection to the work I was doing. And it makes me think back to kind of this whole debate that was happening in my mind a few years ago of, can you pursue your passion? Is it possible to live a life where you're following your heart and that is your work? And I had that moment the other day where I was like, wow, it is possible. I'm watching it happen. And a huge takeaway for me is that intuition that was speaking to me was always there, but I dismissed it because how could I have known that this life was possible if everyone around me, everyone in my circle, everyone in my network had gone on the same path? How would I have known that it's possible to move cities, to leave a high-paying job behind, leave my law degree behind? Not that I've left it behind. I still am a lawyer, technically, for something completely new, but not even something just new, something that is so deeply aligned with my being. And that's what I want to talk about today. Reflecting on this journey now that it's been almost a year of us leaving our jobs and watching Life Unpotted and watching our lives evolve in a way that feels so, so, so aligned, and a reminder that it's possible. It is so possible to live a life that's aligned to you, but the reality of it is we spend many years not knowing what that life might look like. And we're here feeling more and more connected each day to this dream that we're pursuing. And it's almost like the dream felt like it was like years away. And it's like I'm starting to feel like I am the dream. Like it's getting closer and closer and closer to, I'm like feeling this sensation of, wow, I actually, for the first time, see the value in what I'm creating. I see the importance in what I'm doing. And I think a huge shift for me in getting here was that it's not about me anymore. It's not about me. It is not about me. It is about the billions of people out there and this planet Earth that we're on that will be here long after we're gone that needs us. And it's pretty crazy to think about how selfish I used to be. So there's a lot to talk about, lots to unpack today, and I'm excited for this conversation. I'm going to pass it to Daisy to hear her thoughts.
Great introduction. That got me really excited for this conversation. I just recognized before we started podcasting that, damn, it's been close to a year since we left our job. I left it the last week of March, and you just 2 weeks later, early into April. And as I say that, I don't even feel connected to it, because none of this is about jobs. None of this is about careers. It was in the beginning. It was when we started. It was about me when it started. It was about, how do I make my life better? How do I achieve something? It was very heavily about me. So it's an interesting journey to begin. And of course, this is how all journeys begin. How when we are setting out to change our life, we have an intention of where we want to get. And as we keep going down that path, keep trying to get somewhere, we realize, and I've realized, there is nowhere to get. There's just this moment right now. And I do see old habits coming in of thinking, oh, you need to get up early, you need to work out, you need to do all these things so you can work diligently on the podcast. But it's interesting, I still come back to these things. I took a lovely 2-hour walk this morning, got up early, just walked, just beautiful outside. It's very naturey in Austin. It's vibrantly green this time of year. It's very beautiful. And in the past, I would have done that because I would have been too fearful that I was wasting too much time by doing that, because I had to get back to grind to create something. And this whole experience of leaving that mentality behind, it's been an interesting one, because I see myself going back and clinging on to that, thinking that there is some self-importance by working several hours of the day. But it's interesting because when it comes down to it, it's exactly what Sophie said. I recognize that it's no longer about me anymore. The goals for this podcast, the goals for the brand, the goals for everything that we're doing, it's no longer about that. So with all of that being said, it just is really exciting to realize that there's nowhere to get, that we have arrived here, because it's not even about growth. It's not even about making money. All of these things, they will happen in due time, and they are important in due time. But the urgency, the rigidity that comes with trying to force these things to happen, you miss out on the most important thing of all, which is the present moment. What are you experiencing in this exact moment? And we can let our anxieties rule us out of fear to create something, to think that we need to achieve something, that our value needs to come from something that we've created. Once we get that, we can settle. On this journey, I've learned that that's total bullshit, because what you have is just right now. You have this life. The fact that you were given a human life is so amazing. It's so incredible. And I'm learning to not take that for granted. So it's interesting how we set out on this journey to change our lives, to change our career trajectory. But when it came down to it, it's changed much more than what we could have ever imagined. And that's what's really exciting to me. I'm unlearning what it means to chase something, to think that once I get something, life will be better. I'm realizing that none of that matters. All that matters is experiencing this moment. And I feel like I say that so much, but it's actually being able to relax and enjoy the moment, because sure, if you build something that's wonderful, but you are never able to enjoy the moment, your human life has been wasted. And I'm talking to myself, because it's so easy to get caught up in focusing on the future that we miss this exact moment. And so much is changed in this moment. We grow in this moment. So that's just my initial thoughts on how far we've come since leaving our jobs as a way to change our lives. It's changed so much. Mentalities are shifting. So I think I'm excited to go deeper and reflect further on this.
I'm excited because I feel like I know exactly what you're feeling, and I'm excited to try to put a little more depth into the words of it. So flashback when we first left our jobs. We were both kind of on the hamster wheel, right? Like we were living this life where, again, the hamster wheel was really the state of our inner world. It's easy to look back now and go, okay, wow, we were leaving. Then I thought I would find happiness. I didn't really think that. Like I kind of got to the point as we were leaving that I started to feel like, okay, I'm not moving to be happier. I'm moving because I know there's something more out there. And as I went from being on this hamster wheel, the state of my inner world was one where I was always searching. I didn't know how to just land in reality. The past year has been this journey, this really interesting experience of looking at all these fears I had about making money on my own, about working for myself, and how so much of this time has been about unlearning the fact that it is possible to build your own brand, to build your own company, and to be an entrepreneur. So it's really important because I want to highlight that that is something I never believed, okay? I never thought that that was possible. So, like the past few months or many months when we first arrived here, for me, was a journey of me trying to understand that, oh, yes, it is possible for me to work for myself. And slowly, what was happening is that I would have these moments of, oh, holy shit, it is possible to do this. And then I'd be like, so then what? If I'm no longer worrying that it isn't possible for me to do this, if I can recognize that life is literally limitless possibility, it brought me to a very interesting point of recognizing that nothing's wrong anywhere, in the sense that like I am capable of doing anything I want in this world, right? And I'm not sure if I'm explaining this, but like I really want to explain the importance of this recognition, because so much of my energy in the past was going towards thinking I couldn't do things. So much of my energy in the past was going towards worrying about the future, worrying about how things are going to work out. And as soon as I realized that this wasn't true, it's like I landed into this new space of, oh, so if nothing externally will make me happy, if my emotions are going to come up no matter what, if I'm going to experience sadness no matter what, and grief and all these feelings, if my state of experience in reality is entirely up to me, then okay, check that off. Check that box off. And that box has been one that's never been checked off, ever. In my entire life, I never have felt at ease to check that off.
I just want to ask you a question. Are you saying that this has nothing to do with work? This is just the state that you have learned to be in? And what has taught you to be in that state? How did you learn to be in that state?
Yeah, I think I'm trying to say that like we saw out on this journey with kind of a viewpoint of it's about the career. It's about what am I doing for a living? But in reality, that was my mind misplacing importance, value, happiness, and inner fulfillment on work.
Yes. I wanted to come back to this, but this is the perfect time to say it. You were saying earlier that you thought, I can never build a brand. I can never build a podcast. I can't build these things. But now you realize you can. But here's the thing. When it comes to these things, I'm thinking about them entirely different, because I used to think about them entirely through a selfish, thinking about me point of view, thinking about the classic brands that are all about a person, are all about what it looks like to live that perfect life. I don't even know if that makes sense, but when I heard brand or when I heard lifestyle, I thought of the shallow, early on influencer culture. I thought of things having to be perfectly color coordinated, but I realized none of that shit matters. All we care about is this message that we have, that we are currently learning of what does it mean to live a meaningful life? What does that mean? So when you take that journey that we're on to actually live a fucking meaningful life, where we both have put an immense amount of pressure in the past on career as a way to get value and meaning, we're unlearning that, first of all. That's a huge learning from leaving our job about a year ago. That's a huge learning for me. But also, it's really exciting because it's almost paving for me a new way of what it means to build something. When you take away the idea of what reflects back on you, it's way less hard, because if it's not about you, there's going to be way less road stops that have you questioning and thinking. And we still have plenty, but this is like a new realization that I'm having in this moment of, right, this is not about us. This is fun and this is exciting because this is leaving a positive impact. It's a positive ripple on people's lives. And if I'm learning what it means to live a meaningful life, it's that, like that quote from A Wonderful Life, the sign that George Bailey's father has in his office. It was something along the lines of, you only have what you can give away. And like the end of the scene of the movie, he lives in an old house and there's all kinds of stuff there. He's not rich financially, he went bankrupt. But then someone comes in and gives a toast to him and is like, to George Bailey, the richest man in town, because he has given so much to so many people throughout his years. He made it his like life's mission to give to people. But that is what comes back to him in that moment, that he is so rich. So I think I'm learning to transverse from my value comes from how much money I'm making, how successful the career I'm in is, how many views my TikToks get, and etc. It's transversing from that to how many great conversations am I having with people? Am I a part of a great community? Am I touching other people's lives? Are they touching my life? Am I just existing in each moment? Last night, Sophie and I just were hanging out and we were so present for 3 hours. And that 3 hours felt like a fucking eternity. So just bringing this all back to the meaningful life, it's to enjoy it for what it is and not to enjoy it out of getting something from something that you're seeking or looking for. So that was a long-winded way of saying it's really powerful when you stop thinking just about yourself when building something. It's really exciting. And I'm excited to keep talking.
Dude, this is like a massive realization for me. Like when I first started making TikToks 2 years ago, I was so anxious. Or 3 years ago, I don't even know at this point. Like I was so anxious making the videos because I was so scared about how I was getting perceived. And look, this just goes to show, like, you have to go through this period of getting to know and figuring it out that it isn't about you. But the only way to do that is to start from square one. And for me and for us, that was starting a podcast. But I really, really, really saw it with my TikToks of like, when I first started making videos, I was so anxious because I put so much pressure on the video I was creating. And now I'm at this point where I'm like, right, how about I genuinely think about what it is that someone else could benefit from when they listen to my video? And here's a hard reality to accept. I spent a lot of years of my life being selfish. And I think a lot of us are selfish when we think about how much we think about ourselves, when we think about how much we worry about ourselves and how our life is revolved around us and what's going to happen later and and all this shit. And I feel like I'm having this massive realization. I was so selfish because I was in so much pain that I have not healed. I was so selfish because I didn't know what it meant to experience love. Like so much of my life, I thought everyone was bad out there. I thought the world was bad. This idea, I don't even know where I got it from, but that people are bad and there's so much bad things happening. Probably the news highlighting like bad, 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 bad. And then growing up and going to law school and everything's so competitive and living in New York City where everyone there feels like it's just competition and I don't care about you. There's no sense of community. There's no sense of the collective, okay? So then I started to reach a point where I started to see myself in other people. I started to have vulnerable, meaningful interactions where my conversations and my relationships with friends were no longer surface level. They were profoundly deep, talking about life's biggest questions, talking about the pain and the trauma that we've all experienced. Like, I started to see what it meant to interact with another human being out of love. Like, pure love. And I guess I'm realizing now that I didn't know what that meant in the past. I didn't know what it meant to experience full love. Why? Because I didn't love myself. Like, this is a huge recognition that, of course, like, when I first started making TikToks and we first started the podcast, we had to learn how to love ourselves first. We had to learn how to recognize that we are everybody, that we are all connected, and that it's not just about me. We were in the parking lot the other day of a park, and there's a guy pulling out. And I was thinking back to how many times I would be sitting there like, oh, can he just pull out faster so I can park? And I had a realization of like, holy shit, this mentality of only thinking about ourselves is another preference that causes us to suffer. We don't realize how thinking about ourselves so much actually causes so much fucking suffering. So now, being at this point where I do feel more whole and complete. Again, this is something I'm still learning, and the pain's gonna come up, and we're always gonna be on this journey, of course. But it's gotten me to this point now where I'm like, right, let's bring on people on the podcast to talk about the environment. Let's talk about sustainable living and conscious consumerism, because I reached a point where I did feel like I woke up. And when you wake up in life, you realize, oh, there's a lot to do here. Like, there's a lot of change to make. And I remember being like 15 years old, and my mom became a Girl Scout, and I got my gold award, and I implemented recycling into my town in high school. And I just didn't really care about it. Like, I did care, but I didn't really care. Like, all the things that my mom used to tell me about, like the earth and all this stuff, and go to museums. Like, I was so caught up in my mind that I couldn't appreciate fine art. I couldn't appreciate a beautiful movie or a beautiful song. My level for appreciation now of the arts, of life, of love, of the environment, of nature, like, when you wake up and you're not caught up in your mind so much, you can really appreciate everything on this planet. So, tying it back to creation and to work, all of a sudden you enter this place where I've entered this place where I go, oh, right. I'm not operating out of fear or anxiety anymore. I'm not posting a video out of fear that I have to go look at it to look at the views to understand how that implicates my value. When you're no longer creating out of a place to validate your value, when you're creating knowing what your inner value is, we tap into something so beautiful because we recognize that it's not about us. And then bam, all that pressure that you're putting on what you're creating and what you're building disappears, because the pressure only existed because you were so concerned about it not positively reflecting you or how you're going to be perceived. Like, this is a massive realization for me. And it's really exciting because now I understand, right, this is how you build a business. One that you really care about, because I finally feel like I know what it means to care about something. And it's crazy how that was a very unfamiliar feeling. But of course, if you don't love yourself, how can you love and appreciate anything else?
Well, I think back to the jobs that I worked or the career path that I had. And I was always trying to prove something to myself because I was looking to someone else to tell you what my value was. And it was getting to a certain point where I looked at the people, quote unquote, above me, and I was like, wait, something is not aligned here. I can't possibly get my value from you. I just couldn't see myself living the life they were living and preaching the values they were preaching of grind, work hard, make money. That's what life's about. And I always attached money to value. So I was like on that page when I didn't know myself, when I was looking to others to tell me my value. But I'm here to say, like, you don't need to look to anyone to find your value. Everyone has inherent value. It's just the conditionings that tell us that we shouldn't believe that value we see in ourselves, it isn't enough because the dollar sign attached to that isn't high enough, or the value that comes with a prestigious job isn't attached to that. The way you present yourself isn't good enough because society values when you are put together. It values when you are driving for something, when you're pushing for something. And that's just really something that I'm unlearning. And it's so hard. But like with what you said, Sophie, when you're lost, you're going to look to anyone to get your value. And that's really dangerous because people who are giving out value left and right, you're doing something for them. And it can be dangerous of what that outcome is. Is it money? Is it just to make more money? And I think maybe being in New York specifically, it's just so cutthroat. And I was brought up to just think that that was the way to go. I wanted to move to New York City because people of high value live there because they're grinding and they're working hard and they're working to the bone. But I'm really unlearning that that's a good thing because when I was doing that, when I was working myself to death, I was running from myself. I was so anxious. I was so stressed. I wouldn't look at myself in the mirror. I was running from something. Not to say you can't be driven and to be building something and still be grounded. You can. You absolutely can. But when it comes down to it, are you enjoying it? Are you able to look at the life you're building and not just be obsessed with all the things you can collect? Are you creating an actual meaningful existence? Because there is a difference between making an existence that is, by all means of society, successful, financial, prestige, those kinds of things, the house, the kids, the dog, on paper, I guess is the right way to say it. But those lives can be empty. I'm not saying they are empty. I'm just saying they can be. But on the other end, you can have a life that doesn't have any of those things. You don't have the money. You don't have the prestige. You don't have the house. You don't have the family. You don't have the kids. You don't have these things. But you can still have a meaningful life. And I'm just really understanding what it means to have a meaningful existence, to be excited, to wake up each day, that you're learning something new, that you're not just trying to achieve something or stay afloat. And I think this is just something we're revisiting. And this is really the direction that the podcast is going in a world where I think Sophie was watching a clip of like 20 and 30-year-olds are much unhappier than they've ever been in like modern day society. Because I think there is this fixation on victim mindset of because there is inflation and there are these things that, and there is social media and there's all of this different stuff. I didn't actually watch the clip. That it's easy to get caught in an idea and blame someone else for your own misery. No matter the situation, you can't blame someone else for your own misery. And I think what we're doing here is we're trying to understand you don't need to have anything on paper in order to have a meaningful life. Like that's a lie. That's a lie. You don't need to live in a house to have a meaningful existence. You don't have to. And it's really exciting to think that way because it's not exclusive then. It's not exclusive. And it's counterintuitive because you think that the more that you have, the more you're pining after something, the more power you have. And for me, when I was in those states or when I fall into those states, I have way less energy. I have way less clarity because I'm so anxious. So it's like this mentality that we're leaning into and learning of relaxing, of having meaning, not needing to get somewhere. It's like you have so much more energy to create. You have so much more energy to share, to help, to enjoy. So it's like telling our generation, telling everyone that slowing down isn't only good for you and necessary, but also changing your mentality around slowing down can give you a lot more energy, a lot more meaning. I think it's like I have this negative connotation with slowing down. But why? It's not all or nothing. It's not slow down and do nothing. It's slow down and then speed up and then slow down. You know, I don't know. I just want a little bit of a tangent. But I feel like you want to say something.
Well, it's like slowing down is to me just grounding myself in reality, because when I'm going really fast, I'm chasing something to feel better. So you're never going to be stressing and worried and fearful. And it's so interesting because I think so many people are asleep, meaning they're controlled by their minds, they're controlled by their thoughts. So everything that they're doing is a byproduct of that. So if you're running a business or if you're a content creator, if you're working for somebody, you're going to really struggle to be grounded in reality. You're not thinking about yourself because your sense of well-being, your sense of ease, your sense of safety, your sense of love and existence and peace will have been met. Like, it makes me think of the whole self-actualization chart. And I forgot where this chart comes from. So is it Maslow hierarchy of needs? Just like how we're meant to reach a point of self-actualization where we basically have healed. And this goes back to what we're talking about on Tuesday's episode of kind of like, we have a bunch of children ruling the world, literal on an emotional intelligence level. So many of our leaders are not awake. They're operating the way that they run their business is like them in fight or flight because they didn't get the love in childhood. Like, they're so hurt. So of course, we're going to have so much greed because if you haven't healed this heart and you haven't given yourself love, everything you're doing in life is going to come out of a very anxious search for your value. So going back to I don't think we're ever running in life because we realize there's nowhere to run to. We instead, we soak into now and we go, oh, I've landed into the present moment. And all of a sudden, you look at one life where it's like you're running around frantically, you're spinning on the hamster wheel, you're making all these impulsive decisions, to the other life where you're on the beach, rhetorically speaking, you're on the beach, and you're just sitting there writing okay, let's plant a tree there. Okay, that tree will be beautiful there. Let's put that garden over there. You're designing reality, you're designing your life in a much more relaxed state so that there's no urgency for anything because you recognize that you're whole and complete. So everything else that you're working on and creating is just extra. It's just bonus points. So there's no rush. You're not operating out of this, I used to post TikTok videos and look at the views and be like, oh my God, I have to post another video. I never knew how to not operate out of an anxious state. It goes back to anxiety. So yeah, I just think that it's so incredibly powerful when you're not operating out of anxiety and you're operating out of love, because life becomes a playground. What you're creating becomes this playground of, oh, place this here, create this here. Oh, beautiful. Let's put there's no rush.
So I had a realization, and it's really exciting because we started this episode talking about what has the journey been since leaving our job. Level 3 of depth going in. And we came to this place almost of conscious creation, because before I had this thought that I'll get to after I explain what I initially thought from what you were saying, you are only as good of a business as you kind of are as a person. And I say that kind of lightly. I say it because when you are a business in a capitalistic world, you have a lot of power. You have a lot of power because consumerism is high. People are buying things all the time. You're making a lot of money. You have a lot of influence, even to our government. There's a lot of stuff there, down to lobbyists. That's just how our society works right now. So it's really cool to think about conscious creation. And I was thinking about Mudwater, because I'm always thinking about Mudwater, because I think that they are a great example, because the founder of Mudwater was in a place where he didn't need to start this business. He didn't need it to make money. He was happy with his life, but there was a demand for what he had created. And now they work with people like MAPS to help spread awareness of the medicinal aspects of using psychedelics. They have a lot of really cool pillars as a company to make change, and that's conscious creation. It feels somewhat selfless. Of course, everything we do for ourselves is inherently selfish, but in a way that this person didn't start this company just to make money. There's some kind of heart and soul. There's some kind of value there. It's funny because I'm watching us step into this territory now of, right, so where is this going to lead us? It's realizing this mindset needs to be brought into creation, into businesses. Because when you plant a good seed, in an abundant garden flourishes. So if you can change the way you think, you can change what grows. And you can change the people's lives who come and pick up the produce from the garden, from where you planted the original seed. So it just feels really exciting to be in a place where I feel like a year after leaving our jobs, my entire mentality on what it means to succeed or what it means to be a success has changed. Because I have shrank a little bit about the idea of myself, and it's became more about the well-being of others. And by that, like our community on Patreon, just seeing people grow, seeing people relax. You're only as rich as what you can give away. And to me, that is inherently so meaningful and so exciting. And I'm just excited to see where we go from here with that mentality.
Wow. It's taken me a while. Our good friend George Poulis made a video on his YouTube the other day, and he's been talking a lot about this after this meditation teacher training course he took, where he kept saying, when you create for other people, it is so abundantly more powerful. And it's taking me a really long time to go from conceptual understanding, which applies to everything we've been talking about on this podcast since the beginning of our episodes. All of these recognitions, you're not who you think you are. You're not the story you've been telling yourself. You're everyone. You are everything. You are the universe. We start from a conceptual understanding because that is how our minds work, right? But when we keep going on this journey, we move out of the conceptual understanding to a full body understanding of, I'm not just telling myself to believe this anymore. I actually believe it. Like, I actually understand and believe and see the importance of helping other people. And now that I think about it, I think behind the scenes the past few weeks, I've been going back and forth with myself of, are you selfish? It doesn't make sense. Like, I know you're not selfish because I know how much you are lit up by helping other people. And I know how great it feels to call up your friends and give them advice and to be there for other people and shed a smile to someone at a restaurant. I know that's in you. But I also see you've been jealous in the past. And I've also seen that you've been a little bit short-tempered or a little bit controlling. So I've been trying to reconcile this. Am I selfish? Are we innately selfish? And this conversation serves as kind of a landing point for that question. Kind of a place to answer to myself of, no, the pain makes us selfish. The pain makes us do things that we wouldn't do because we're so desperately searching for connection and love. And this is the freaking power of connection and love. It heals you. We heal together. And all of a sudden, you take me, someone who is a corporate lawyer helping rich investors build properties, slowly unravel this complicated layer of, but that's not me. But then who am I? Because I have all these intense emotions and I get mad and I get angry and I can't post a video without thinking about myself. All of that fades away because it was never who you were. Like, that was never who you were. And this is a profound realization because I have said it so many times, that's not me, that's not me. But now I really get it because instead of 80% of my life being full of anger, jealousy, and pain, it's like 10% of my existence is. The configuration, the ratios, the percentages switch. And all of a sudden, we've peeled back. And like Michael Singer said, we've picked up each rock and pulled the rocks out of our being because the rocks just got stuck. They were in the wrong places. They never should have been there in the first place. The rock of anger and control and reactivity and putting someone else down to feel better were all because we didn't know how to love ourselves. So holy shit, full circle moment of like, this is real. This is true. This is like the truest thing I think of life, of the power of waking up, the power of love, the power of connection. So if there's any motivation to people out there to heal, it's to find out of this beautiful garden that we have been missing out on creating and growing in. This beautiful garden of abundance, of the tastiest watermelon or fruit you will ever bite into, the ability to savor and enjoy simply sitting on a couch with somebody and laughing. The purest recognition that life isn't about scrolling on TikTok. It's about human to human connection. And that is something that, yes, I know I'll die one day, but that is the most powerful gift. That, of course, it is those who we spend so much of our life fearful of death. But when we learn how to live, are we really that scared of it anymore?
Well, it's like what you're describing is the world we are living in where we are just thinking about ourselves is in grayscale. It's in black and white. It's in one color, not even black and white. It's just in a big shade of gray. And then the world we're branching into that you're describing of doing things for others that doesn't just mean the benefit of you. It's not just obsessing over the new item you're going to get, the new material you're going to get, the new house, all this stuff. Not worrying about any of that, but actually being here and connecting with people. That's in color. That's in like XD. That's in something that you can't even comprehend. Like it's the most abundant piece of fruit you can have. Like it's the most beautiful. Like that is real life. Like that is what life is. That's how we experience the true beauty of life. So that is just a really cool picture to paint because you can always change your life. You can always come enter this world where it's not just about you anymore. And it takes time. It's a journey, it's a challenge, but it doesn't have to be about just you and what you're getting and how you look and how people perceive you. You'll realize that it's much more expansive and it's much more beautiful to think about how am I impacting others, not just obsessed with yourself. It's much more satisfying and it makes life feel longer, abundant, and just anything is possible really when you think through that lens. So I'm just excited to have had this conversation. It was a beautiful conversation. And I'm just seeing how much there is to talk about as we come out of this funk of where we were thinking about ourselves a lot. And there was not enough time to do anything. And now that I'm coming out of that, I'm seeing the endless opportunities that exist. This brand doesn't work when we think about ourselves. Inherently, sometimes we fall into that, and that's okay. But when we come out of it, we recognize that we have to think about the collective in order for this to work, because that's the basis of it.
Wow. It's just a beginning. Like, holy shit. Yeah, I think that's all I got. I think this is beautiful. This is a beautiful realization. This conversation was awesome. It was awesome to chat with you, Daisy, about it. And I'm excited to continue experiencing what a life looks like when it's not just about me. That's an exciting place to be. And I feel like it's finally making sense. All the things people have said to me in the past, like, are from Ray, from Dualistic Unity, Hector, like, plant the seeds and your garden will surely bloom. But what seeds are you planting? Are you planting out of fear? Are you planting out of, I need to make sure that I look okay from this? Or are you planting out of love?
What a beautiful conversation. So we thank all of you listeners for listening today and contemplating what seeds you're planting, because things don't bloom overnight. It takes years, it takes time. So keep going, keep planting the seeds that you want to see blossom in the future. And thanks for being here. Thanks for being a part of the community. And we'll see you next week. Have a lovely weekend.
Have a nice weekend, and we'll talk to you guys next week. Bye.